Hello. So there's been some updates to the Orchestra MetaEngine involving matrix tasks. And the updates are that now you can run matrix tasks both sequentially and introduce dependencies within their task groups. So we're going to take a quick look at those changes, how to implement them, and what they do. So just to quickly recap what already existed in the MetaEngine was the ability to run tasks in parallel within a pipeline. So here's one I made earlier. If I look at the matrix configuration, I have these two values, input value A and B. And you can see within my Python task, all I'm going to do is print them. And what happens when I run this pipeline is these two tasks run in parallel, printing A and B. But that's in parallel. We're here to talk about sequential. So let's have a look at what this would look like in sequential form. Now, in order to enable this in a pipeline, all I need to do is come back into my matrix configuration and click this new little box that says Run Matrix Sequentially. And what this is going to do is, instead of running them at the same time, we would now expect A to run and then B to run rather than being at the same time. So let's kick this pipeline off and make sure that's what happens. And there we go. We can see that our tasks have now run sequentially with A followed by B as the order was that we defined in the list. So very simply, that's the first change to the MetaEngine, is you can now dynamically set these lists of tasks that will execute sequentially. Perhaps you've got an API that has a very strict limit, or something you can only run one at a time. And for those of you that are creating or managing your pipelines all in YAML, that is configured via this sequential true configuration on your matrix blocks, if you want to update it there. And that is just one of the new updates in the MetaEngine. If you come to take a look at our docs and you read the matrix tasks page, you'll see there is also this mention of sequential dependencies within task groups. So let's take a look at how they work. Now, here is my very basic pipeline. I have a Snowflake query that runs, and then I have a Python script that is just going to print the results of that query. So nothing too major. But at the moment, I either have to put them in two separate task groups, or I had to have them run in parallel. But now, once you have this set up, there is a new little box here that says create task-to-task dependencies in this group based on their visual order. And what that means is top to bottom is now going to go left to right. So if I click that, you can see that this shifts. And now what we would expect to happen is my Snowflake query to run and then my Python task to run afterwards. What this does mean is I can now also use those outputs within this task group. So I'm going to print the result of my queries in my Python script just to prove that's what it does. And there we have it. Now, all my SQL query did actually was select the value 1, but we can see in our Python output that we actually are printing this value of 1. So our dependencies worked as expected, and that's another cool update. Now, on its own, adding dependencies within task groups may not be the most interesting thing, because we could kind of already do that by having my Snowflake query in one task group and my Python in another task group. But this could be useful if you wanted to control, say, alert settings on groups of tasks. So if this task group now fails, I can do something on the next task group rather than having to condition on all of these tasks, individually. I can treat them as one action, I suppose. But what if we want to go a little further? What if I want to combine the parallel execution with these sequential dependencies? Well, now I can. All I have to do is define my matrix again, and we can then see how this is able to run these sequential dependencies with parallel execution. So, as we did originally, I'm just going to define my input value matrix as A and B. I'm not going to select run sequentially this time, though you could if you wanted these task groups to run sequentially, but I think it's going to look a bit nicer to run in parallel. So we define this. I have updated my Snowflake query to just select that input value. I'm going to wrap it in quotes just to make sure it's all nice and safe. So we're expecting that to return A or B. And my Python task is then just going to print it as well, so we can see how these get passed from task to task. So I'm going to save this pipeline and then run it, and we'll see what happens. Cool. Now, as you can see, we essentially have two parallel branches of this pipeline now. We have the A branch, which ran a query and returned A, and then printed it in the Python task A. Similarly, we ran a query that returned B and passed it to Python task that returned B also. Now, this is a really basic example, but this could be really good if you want to run matrix tasks over things like Snowflake queries and then follow it with a subsequent Slack message or email or any action where you want that limited to that branch. Otherwise, if you ran them as parallel followed by parallel, you're just going to have to keep figuring out how to pass values from this task to the next. This just makes it a whole lot easier for you. And really now, whether you want to run things in parallel or sequential or both at the same time, the MetaEngine can support pretty much whatever you want to do and make your pipeline super dynamic. So definitely go and give it a go. And just to recap, we had the parallel execution of the matrix, which looks a little like this in your pipeline. We had the sequential execution of a matrix, so one after the other. And then we had a little bit of both, but not parallel and sequential, but parallel with task-to-task dependencies. So when you want to run a chunk of a pipeline multiple times all at once. So those are just some of the new cool updates to Orchestra and its MetaEngine. So go and give it a go, see how it fits into your pipelines, and let us know what you think. Thanks.